So, um, imagine looking at the skyline of Manhattan.
Okay.
It is 3:17 in the morning.
Right.
The city is just doing its thing, millions of lights, late-night traffic, the whole hum of the grid.
No.
It's the city that never sleeps right.
Right. Just a totally normal night.
Exactly. But then in a single heartbeat, the lights just go out. Total darkness.
Wow.
And 3 seconds later, half the island is simply gone.
And we're not talking exploded, right? Not leveled, just gone.
Exactly. Gone. Like someone literally took a bite out of reality.
It is such a wild visual.
It really is. And that is the opening hook of the source material for our deep dive today. A story called They Thought We'd Scream. Or sometimes it's called A Terrible Bite of Saul.
Yeah, which is a great title, by the way.
Really great title. And I have to say, usually when we cover sci-fi topics with you, we are looking at the sociology or the speculative tech. But this one feels completely different.
It does. It feels like a case study in extreme game theory.
Yes.
It is basically a masterclass in asymmetry. Because, it takes that classic alien invasion trope, the Independence Day speeches, the dogfights over the desert, and it just completely throws it out the window.
Right. No epic speeches here.
None. It asks a much darker and honestly much more interesting question. What happens when a civilization that thinks it is the apex predator suddenly finds out it's actually just livestock?
And that pivot right there, that shift from war to farming, is exactly where I want to start.
It's the core of the whole thing.
Because in the text, the antagonist, the Viral, they don't actually invade.
No, they don't.
They don't broadcast a manifesto. There is absolutely no take me to your leader moment.
Right, and that is the very first tactical error humanity makes in the story.
We expect a conversation.
Exactly. We project our own concepts of human conflict onto them. We expect theater. We expect some formal declaration of war.
But instead, the Viral just dropped these massive obsidian pillars onto key population centers.
Right. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago.
And the descriptions of these pillars in the text are just great. They are just big metal slabs sitting on the pavement. The source describes them as bending light.
Yeah.
It sounds visually disorienting just to read about it.
The scientists in the narrative actually call it localized dimensional shear.
Okay, so localized dimensional shear. What does that mean exactly for those of us who didn't major in theoretical physics?
Well, think of a map lying flat on a table.
Okay.
If you want to bring two distant points together, instantly you can just fold the paper right.
Right.
These pillars are essentially folding the paper of our reality. They create this intense gravitational distortion that basically snips a piece of the Earth out of our dimension and transports it
Somewhere else.
somewhere else entirely.
So when the naval fleet out in the Pacific disappears, the report says they folded inward like crushed paper.
Yes.
So they aren't being destroyed, they're being harvested.
Precisely. And this is where that livestock insight becomes so key to understanding the text. You have to totally change your mindset to understand the antagonist here.
Because you don't declare war on a cornfield.
Exactly. You don't negotiate with cattle before you send them to the slaughterhouse. The silence from the Viral isn't some psychological tactic to scare us. It is just pure indifference.
Yeah.
To them, we aren't a geopolitical entity. We aren't sovereign nations. We are literally just calories.
And honestly, that indifference is so much more terrifying than actual malice or hatred.
Oh, absolutely.
But eventually they do communicate. I think it takes about 12 days in the timeline.
Day 12. But even when that communication happens, it is, well, it's insulting.
Yeah, it's not even language.
No, they transmit a mathematical sequence via pulsars, and they route it through the warped space-time around the pillars.
Which is just a massive flex. Like, hey, we can use stars as flashlights.
It is a total display of cosmic dominance. And when the human astrophysicists finally decode this math, it translates down to a very simple three-word concept. You are livestock.
You are livestock, which recontextualizes absolutely everything. The story even mentions that humanity is viewed by them as an experiment that reached harvest maturity. So all our nuclear weapons, our armies, our global politics, it is all completely irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant to them. There is a scene that perfectly illustrates this gap in power.
The National Guard convoy?
Yes, the convoy in the Midwest. They spot one of these obsidian pillars and they engage. They fire absolutely everything they have. Tank shells, missiles, heavy machine guns.
And the physics just break.
Just breaks. The shells slow down in midair, they reverse direction, and they implode the very vehicles that fired them.
Incredible.
It is not a battle. It is a human swatting a fly. It is the effortless removal of a minor pest. And that is the exact moment the global public panic truly sets in. Because how on earth do you fight something that treats your strongest weapons like children's toys?
Well, the public obviously panics. People are screaming for surrender.
Naturally.
But as we said, you can't surrender to a combined harvester.
Yeah.
However, the government, specifically the U.S. command structure in this story, does something really interesting here.
They do.
They don't panic. They go completely dark.
And this is the pivot point of the whole narrative. While the Sufis world is in total chaos, the leadership retreats deep underground to Cheyenne Mountain. And this is where the genre shifts. It goes from a disaster movie to a tense techno-thriller.
Right.
They gather generals, physicists, and what the text specifically calls black budget engineers.
Black budget engineers. I just love that phrase.
It's so evocative.
These are the guys building the stuff that officially does not exist.
Exactly. The tech that is 2 or 3 generations ahead of anything the public knows about. And the president gives them unlimited authority. Her broadcast from the bunker is chilling.
She says, we do not know what they are, but they are about to learn what we are.
Yes.
And I mean, reading that, it sounds like bluster. We just saw an entire naval fleet get crushed like a piece of paper. What could we possibly have up our sleeves that would matter against that?
Well, we have DARPA, specifically a highly theoretical project that had previously been dismissed as impossible. It was called gravitational resonance inversion.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because when I hear resonance, I usually think of sound. Like a singer hitting the right note in a wine glass shattering.
It is a very similar principle, but applied to the fabric of gravity. Think about a microphone getting way too close to a speaker. You get that horrible screech of audio feedback, right?
Yeah, the high-pitched squeal.
Exactly. The sound loops back on itself and amplifies until it blows out the speaker entirely.
Okay, I follow that.
So the viral technology works by bending space-time. They create a specific frequency of gravitational distortion to cut the cities out. The theory these engineers came up with was this. If you can identify that exact frequency, you don't try to put up a shield to block it.
You mirror it.
You mirror it. You grab that artificially bent space and you forcefully bend it back harder. You create a literal feedback loop in gravity itself.
As the text says, not to defend, to wound.
That is the line.
Yeah.
And the device they built to do this, it's not sleek. It is not some shiny deflector dish from Star Trek.
No, the text calls it Liberty Bell, and it sounds like an absolute nightmare of engineering.
Yeah.
It's described as a weaponized singularity generator strapped to experimental fusion drives.
Yes, and they are overclocking every nuclear reactor they can safely tap into just to power the thing.
Safely being a very relative term here.
Highly relative. It is a jury-rigged, highly unstable monster of a machine. It is essentially a bomb that they just hope they can point in the right direction without vaporizing themselves first.
So we have the weapon. Now we just need the target. And the story moves the narrative to Houston.
Right. A massive obsidian pillar appears right over the city center. Now, usually this is where the harvest begins. The gravity waves start rippling out to cut the city out of the Earth's crust. But this time, the trap is waiting.
Liberty Bell fires.
And the description of this moment is so visceral, the machine doesn't push the alien gravity away, it grabs it. It amplifies the distortion, creating what they call a chaotic resonance.
And the pillar, which has been completely indestructible up to this point, actually starts to crack. And this is the key moment for me. The massive shift in the aliens' behavior. The source text says something aliens screamed across electromagnetic bands.
Yes. It is pure shock. For the very first time, the harvester feels pain. The pillar tears wide open, and humanity finally sees what is behind the curtain.
And it isn't just a machine.
No, there is a biological entity on the other side of that tier. It's described as massive, multi-limbed, with eyes blinking independently. And it is bleeding.
That is the psychological turning point right there. If it can bleed, it can die.
Exactly. The alien immediately starts pulsing frantic data into orbit. A warning. It realizes the livestock suddenly has a weapon. Now, in a normal sci-fi story, this is the climax. This is where we cheer.
Right, we drove them off. Houston is saved. High fives all around.
But we don't stop there.
We do not stop.
We absolutely do not. And this is where the story really earns its title, The Terrible Bite of Saul. The scientists down in Cheyenne Mountain see the alien trying to close the gateway. It is trying to retreat and shut the door to save itself.
But the president gives the order to adjust the resonance.
Yes. She says, hold the door open.
They force the wormhole to stow open.
They do. The singularity generator locks onto the alien's dimensional anchor.
Which, for clarity, is basically the rope the alien is using to pull itself down to Earth, right?
Right. That's a great way to put it. And humanity grabs that rope, and we pull. The text says it pulled hard.
So what exactly happens when you pull a multidimensional being backwards through its own broken portal?
Well, it is not just about the being itself. It is about where that being is currently anchored. It's anchored to its point of origin in another star system.
Okay.
Across the globe, human astronomers are watching the night sky, and they see something completely impossible. In a distant star system, a star suddenly flickers.
Just flickers.
It flickers, then it dims, and then it vanishes.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm being crystal clear on this for everyone listening. We didn't just kill the alien in Houston. We put out their sun.
We destabilized the gravitational binding of their entire solar system.
Wow.
The text confirms it right from the bunker. Someone says we got one. Humanity didn't just shoot down a bomber. We reached back through the attacker's own space-time technology across light years, and we collapsed their home star.
The scale of that retaliation is absurd. It is almost hard to wrap your head around.
It is mutually assured destruction, but on a galactic scale. The Varel thought they were dealing with completely helpless animals. Instead, they realized they had stuck their hand into a meat grinder that could literally reach back and grind up their house, too.
It completely upends the power dynamic.
Instantly.
You go from being livestock to being a cosmic horror yourself.
And the Varel reaction in the text confirms this shift perfectly. The pillars deactivate instantly across the globe. The harvest stops. For 12 tense hours, there is dead silence. And then a brand new message comes through.
You are not livestock. You are predators.
It is an admission of defeat. But notice the specific language they use. They don't say you are civilized.
Right.
They don't say let's be friends and negotiate. They say predator. They are actively reclassifying humanity as a lethal threat.
So the harvest is over. But then the Varel Armada finally shows up in physical form near lunar orbit. And at this point, the people on Earth have to be thinking, okay, we hurt them. Now they are going to just wipe us out from space.
It is the most logical assumption. We just blew up one of their star systems. You would absolutely expect massive retaliation. So humanity prepares for total extinction. The missile silos open, the bombers launch. We are ready to go down fighting.
Yeah.
But the aliens do not fire a single shot.
They just sit there.
They don't dare fire. This is classic game theory here, specifically playing into the dark force concept. They have just watched a primitive species reach back through a wormhole and snuff out a star.
Yeah.
They don't know if we can do it again. They don't know the limits of our spite. If they attack Earth conventionally, do we just blindly blow up another one of their systems?
So they're genuinely scared of us.
Terrified. Instead of attacking a massive structure detaches from their fleet, it hovers in the space between the Earth and the Moon, and it detonates.
A bomb.
No, a flare. A star-bright beacon that ripples outward into deep space away from Earth, and then the entire alien fleet withdraws. And the text specifically notes they withdraw in caution.
In caution?
Not fleeing in a panic, but backing away slowly, like how you would back away from a rabid animal that you really don't want to startle.
And we find out a bit later what that beacon actually was. It wasn't a message for us at all.
No, it was a message to the rest of the galaxy. The text mentions that ancient civilizations intercept this beacon centuries later, and the translated message is incredibly simple. Avoid Sol. The humans are terrible.
Avoid Sol. The humans are terrible. That word terrible carries so much weight in that context.
It really does. It defines us not by our culture or our art or our diplomacy, but strictly by our capacity for disproportionate destruction. And we have to look at the president's final speech in this story to understand how humanity internalized this new identity.
Right, she says we were never meant to survive. They miscalculated.
Yes. And then that incredible closing line. They thought we'd scream. We learned to bite.
It is a victory, technically speaking. We survived the harvest. But it feels like a very heavy victory.
Because the cost wasn't just the millions of people dead in the vanished cities. The true cost was our place in the wider universe. We didn't win by being smarter or more enlightened. We won by proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that we were the biggest monsters in the room.
We saved ourselves by proving we were willing to destroy an entire world we had never even seen.
Exactly. And that is the terrible bite of Sol. We proved we have teeth. But in doing so, we practically ensured that no one in the galaxy would ever want to come near us. We isolated ourselves by proving just how deeply dangerous we are.
It is a really lonely kind of safety.
It is. The beacon constantly warns others to stay away. So yes, we are safe, but we are permanent pariahs. We have become the things in the dark that the other monsters are afraid of.
This whole narrative really gets to the core of that humanity FES genre, but it completely subverts it.
Yes, it does.
Usually those stories are about how humans are spunky and tenacious and creative. This is about humans being, well, absolutely ruthless when backed into a corner.
Ruthless and entirely disproportionate. Think about the farming analogy I used earlier.
Okay.
If a cow kicks you when you try to milk it, you might be annoyed. You might even put it down. But if the cow suddenly pulls out a shotgun and blows up your house...
You definitely don't try to milk it again.
You don't. You put up a massive sign that says, "Do not enter," and you move to a completely different county.
Okay, beware of cow.
Exactly. But on a stellar scale, the Varel absolutely initiated the violence. We didn't start the fight. But the human response was so extreme, destroying a solar system to stop a harvest, that it permanently defined our species' character to the rest of the universe.
It really emphasizes that concept of defensive desperation. The text explicitly mentions that our retaliation wasn't calculated for fairness. It was calculated purely for survival.
That is the key takeaway here. In a literal fight for extinction, proportionality goes completely out the window. It is just physics. Force meets counterforce. We just happen to have a much louder counterforce than they ever expected a livestock species to have.
We proved we were willing to flip the entire board rather than lose the game.
Right.
It reminds me of that old saying that you don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. But in this case, we fought fire with a supernova.
We fought fire with total annihilation. We looked deep into the abyss, and when the abyss looked back, we poked it in the eye with a weaponized singularity generator. We didn't just become monsters to survive, we became the apex monster.
So bringing this all back to you listening, why does a deep dive into a story like this stick with people so much? Is it just the power fantasy of fighting back?
I think it resonates so strongly because it taps into a very primal fear, the fear of being completely helpless, of being treated as livestock. But it also validates a very primal survival instinct. We understand the idea that if you back us into a corner, all bets are off. It is that "don't tread on me" impulse taken to its absolute cosmic extreme.
And it suggests that out there in the dark forest, peace isn't achieved through understanding or mutual trade. In this universe, peace is achieved strictly through fear.
Exactly. They leave us alone not out of respect, but because they are terrified of what we might do to them next. They realize that messing with Earth is simply too high of a risk.
Which brings me to a thought I have been stuck on ever since we started prepping for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
It's about that beacon, the one warning everyone to avoid Saul.
Right.
If a harvester civilization viewed us simply as cattle, and we proved them wrong by obliterating their home star, did we actually prove we are sentient? Did we prove we are people? Or did we just prove that we are a highly dangerous anomaly that needs to be permanently quarantined?
That is the haunting question, isn't it? We survived, but the galaxy doesn't see us as heroes who won their independence. They see us as a galactic hazard.
Yeah.
But maybe survival is the only metric that actually matters in a dark forest. If the choice is be a monster or be dead, most species will choose to be the monster every single time.
It's definitely something for you to think about the next time you look up at the night sky. The stars might not be looking back at us, but they might be actively warning each other about us. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the terrible bite of Saul.
Stay safe out there.
And remember, sometimes the absolute best defense is a really, really big bite. Catch you next time.